Hey, welcome back to Basin Motorsports. So today we are going to start working on the rear bumper. Now, my wife is out of town today, so I am working by myself, so I only have two hands, which is why I'm not wrapping, because the last two pieces are the quarter, and those pieces really need two people to do it well. I'm afraid I'm just going to get it all wrinkled and stick to itself. So two people would be a lot easier to do, so today I'm going to work on the rear bumper. Now, my rear bumper really wasn't so bad. You know, it's pitted, it's got some cracks, but it's nothing that's really worn through, I guess, like the front bumper. It's got a definite crack all the way through that I need to fix. So with this, it's more like just fixing the pitting and the surface and doing the piece there. So now to really start this, all I wanted to do was get this surface really prepped so that I could start doing filler. Now, I had already done the 1500 sanding and that just to kind of get an idea of the surface prep that I needed, and this bumper itself, not very good. The 1500 was okay, but it's just not really great. So I ended up taking 60 grit, which I know is really abrasive, but that really kind of scuffed it up and basically got the surface enough that I felt like I could get putty to stick to it well. So now after the surface was prepped, of course I cleaned it. I used some glass cleaner to start with just to kind of get most of the grease off. Then I went back over with alcohol. Now this is the same alcohol, the 70% isopropyl alcohol that I'm using on the car surface, so I know that it's definitely degreased and clean and ready to go. So now the stuff I'm using is going to be the Polyflex from Evercoat. This is number 411, so this stuff is flexible polyester glazing putty. And really it's meant as a flexible filler, not something that's going to go, you know, quarter-inch deep, but for something like a bumper skin like this, it should hold up pretty well. I ended up talking to the Evercoat rep about it, kind of telling him what I was doing. He recommended this, the 411 glazing putty for the flexibility of it, so that's what I'm going to do on the rear and the front bumper once I get the front bumper repaired. So I've already started working on it, and I will tell you, you know, when I did the kitty hair and the tiger hair, which is kind of like the long strand fiberglass and then the short strand fiberglass on the front fenders, I felt like I had a pretty good time. You know, you had a good amount of time to fix it. It was somewhere, you know, like 5 minutes you had to kind of work with it, so you didn't have to like panic and get it done. So on this stuff, I will say that is not the case. I ended up putting about a 3-inch, 4-inch piece of putty down. And I tell you, this, you see all this that's left over? That is literally like 3 minutes in, and it was to the point where it wasn't even workable anymore. So I will say on this stuff, don't get a lot of material out. Get just maybe like the size of a silver dollar or somewhere around that. A little bit of hardener, get to it, get it on there, and then let it skim over when you got it left. This is a big waste, and I read the directions even, and it said it's got like 6 minutes before you can sand it, which I didn't read it as. That means 3 minutes before you can't do anything with it. So, tip, go small, a little bit harder, put it on, and make multiple times of doing little bits versus going one big hog wild bit and wasting a lot of it. All right, so you can kind of see there now. Not the smoothest application I've ever done, but I'm kind of racing time. You can see that even this stuff right here is starting to gel up. You can see it's starting to harden, so it's kind of getting crispy while you're doing stuff. And there again, here's another spot right here. This is just a big rough area, so I'm just going to coat it, and then I can sand this back off smooth. Got a little bit more to do to here, a little bit more to do here, and of course this is the top of the bumper. So this is right at the tail light, so I got to do this, and then I've got a little bit more a little bit more right in here. So you can see this divot kind of right here on this bumper where it looks like it got scuffed or backed into something. So here's going to be my stopping point for today. Now, it only takes about 20 minutes or so at, I think it's at 70, 75 degrees, which it is, but I just don't have that time to allow this to set up before I start sanding. So I'm going to let it sit overnight, but I'll give you kind of a walk around so you can see I have not spared this stuff by any means. Of course, this is passenger side, going all around, and I know by going a little heavy with it, of course, I've got to sand it off. That's on me. But I feel like doing this is going to give it a good surface to be able to put the wrap onto. And again, I think just doing this with 1500 grit all the way down to that is going to get this to be exactly the way I want. So there you go. There's the molding. Lots to sand back off, and it's going to be beautiful. All right, so I let the bumper sit overnight, and I came out earlier this afternoon. Did about 2 hours of sanding on the bumper, and most of it was done with the Wonder Wheel. Oh, it's down there. Anyway, the buttonless Wonder Wheel, my Black & Decker sander. Now I did that with 220 grit over most of it, so you can kind of see. If I flip it up, you can see it's pretty well done. There's a couple spots in here. I need to add some more filler in that. So I did 220 with the sander. The other stuff I did about a 60 grit, 60 to 100 grit by hand because I knew I could control it. I didn't have to go crazy with the orbital sander and that, because it with 100 would go crazy. It would go really too fast. So now I'm going to put on the rear bumper. We'll put on a second coat on just certain parts of the rear bumper of the Evercoat 411, and probably do, again, I'll probably just do the I got the dollar size and put that on, see how far it goes, put another coat on, and that way I don't waste any material. I can get to it very quickly. So this is cleaned, ready to go. I'm going to let this sit, and then I'm going to jump over to the front bumper to start taking that apart and getting it ready for disassembly and a similar process of sanding, filling, and then getting ready for the vinyl wrap. And it's got some paint in it, which I'll show you. All right, so let's jump ahead a little bit on the rear bumper. I have gone through and sanded everything close to done. And I wanted to test a theory of mine, because I think on these corners, this bumper is really going to be a nightmare. Normally you have bumpers that are more of a swooping corner, and they come around, but these being the early 80s are pretty boxy. So what I thought was going to happen actually has happened. The material you can wrap this way pretty easily, but when you wrap it around the corner and go back, what you start seeing is you get a ton of material just bunching up right here. So I put it up on last night, threw up on Instagram a picture and tagged some people, and then said, guys, what do you think? I really would like to do this in one piece, but my skill set's not there. There's no way I think I can get this out. So the majority of everybody had said you need to basically seam it. What that means is that it's going to be two-pieced, and I just need to find a place to do it. So I think this top contour right here, right in this top edge right here, is going to be the perfect place to seam it, to where I can bring the bottom up to the top of the edge here, bring the top to the lower edge of it, and then have just this contour here as my overlap. I think I can hide it that way. So there are two theories on how to seam this. One was to wrap it all in one piece, get to this point here, make a slit along the side, take all this extra, pull it down this way, and then cut it off. Now I think I can do it that way, and I'm going to try it with this same material to do it both ways. I'm going to slit it there, slit the bottom. I think I'm going to put a piece of the knifeless tape across it just to try it, put the piece on top, and then cut it with the knifeless tape. Let's see how that goes. Second thing is, somebody had said, just basically make this my top level, go all the way down, and then do this top as all one piece. So basically a two-piece section, make this on top. Now, when you look down at the car, I think you're not going to recognize the seam because I'm going to hide it strategically in this line. And it's going to take a little bit of extra work to kind of fit exactly the way I want and use some knifeless tape. But I'm going to try it with two pieces this way. So let's get the first one done where I slit it, pull it over, knifeless tape, see if it's going to work. Second one, I will completely take the top off knifeless tape all the way around it, and then relay it down and do the whole piece versus just the side section. So, I need to get my knife, make this happen. Kind of see the top edge. This is the knifeless tape, and there's a little filament in there. The green is just the tape you pull it through, but you can see it's down in the channel all the way around. Now I need to basically take this, flip it over, wrap across it, and then use this to basically cut through it and pull it. Okay, so here is the piece. Now granted, I've already taken this vinyl off and on, so I think that's part of the stickiness. You can see where it's not sticking, especially right in here. This tells me that this bumper isn't in close ready, so it's good to know a test before I waste a big piece of material that I've used some of this other stuff. This stuff looks pretty good though. So here goes the piece here. Now we're going to tear this and see if it goes. Alright, so here's the end of the experiment. So what I ended up doing, and I realize now I didn't actually hit record. So here's what I did. You know, you saw it was all wrapped in here, and I ended up cutting right here. And I cut right along this line so that the molding itself stayed. I then took this material, pulled it all the way down, and you can see I'm having an adhesion issue right here. No matter what I do, if I heat it, push it down, this tells me the bumper still needs more work. That's okay. But what you can see is that I've now got the material to come this way, flow around, and if this stuck, you'd see all this one piece. Now, if I really get down in here on the seam, there is a seam in this. There are two pieces overlapping. This top overlaps the bottom. But I think since it's in the body, right here in the body contour, I guess you call it, in the recess, you really don't see it. So that is a definite win. Now, talking about the bottom, you can see that it's wrapped all the way around. But immediately, as soon as I started pulling this around the side, I couldn't pull it down this way because the body actually swoops up. So I ended up taking this material and I cut it. So if I show you right there, you can see how bad a cut is. But this is cut right here underneath there. So I ended up taking this material, I cut it, and I pulled it up this way to get this to kind of float in and around this corner, especially here. So I think what I'm going to do on this is that I'm going to actually do 3 pieces. And I know it's going to sound crazy in that, but I think it's going to work out. So I'm going to wrap this bottom edge first. Now, obviously, the very rear of it, the flat, is going to go on very easy because it's all basically parallel. The minute I get around to these corners, what's going to happen is this material is going to come around this way, and because this angle is this way, what happens is you pull, it's going to want to start flowing up. Now, standing back and looking at it, you really can't see it, and I will do this after these quarters to make sure this is going to work. But I think it's going to work that I can pull this up this way, and you won't actually see much of a difference in the color. That's where I worry about, is that this color change, if it's not exactly perfectly running this way, like parallel to the body molding, if it goes up a little bit, what I'm worried about is that it's off color and then it looks funny. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to wrap this bottom piece first. After this is done, I will then look at this compared to this, just so I can say, yeah, it's going to work. It's going to be fine. I'll wrap these bottom piece. I'm going to finish it on the bottom edge of this molding. So I'm probably going to come up right about to the molding edge here. I will then do this top piece so that it will go over this edge, and that looking down, you won't see the edge of this material. You'll only see this going down. That's going to work. I'll do that knifeless tape so I can do it. I can basically cut right here at the edge. I can then do this molding line all the way across. Again, wrapping parallel is fine. It's when I get to these complex corners that make it shift that's the problem. So do this one. I'll do the molding next. Do knifeless tape on this edge right here. And then I'm going to wrap this top piece in one shot. So 3 main pieces, all the width, and I could just measure the length wrapping around, and then just cut strips basically out of it for each section. Wrap it, knifeless tape, wrap it, knifeless tape, wrap it, and then that should be it. You won't see the edges, you won't see it all pieces, but it's going to be like shingles on a house. It'll go top to middle to bottom, but you've actually done bottom, middle, top. Does that make sense? I don't know. It makes sense to me right now, so it's going to be okay. This is all going to work, and you guys are going to go, wow, that actually turned out, because I don't do anything less than it works out. So here's the game plan. I'm going to leave this alone for now. I'm going to do these quarters. I will come back. You'll see the car is green, and then I'm going to measure against it, and I'll show you that before I take anything off, resand before I rewrap. It's a lot of work, but I think doing it this way and doing the test of the adhesion and the other pieces definitely is going to pay off for me. But if you guys are following this, you can decide if you're going to do it this way too, and you can judge my results if that's what you want to do. And again, if anybody's done this out there and you can say yes or no to this, I'd love to hear it. But I think this is the way I want to do it for at least the color change material, because I think it needs it kind of like this pieced together look. Okay, so I'm back working on the rear bumper. Now, in between the last time when I stopped and here, I sanded for 3 hours on this bumper. I took it back down to about 220 grit, to 400, to I think 1,000, and then 1,500. And I tell you, the whole time I was sanding, I was starting to question myself if I was spending too much time worrying about these darn bumpers and stuff. And you know what the answer was to me? If it works the first time, no one is going to complain you spent too much time doing it right. If it doesn't work right the first time, everybody is going to complain you didn't spend enough time. So remember I said I was going to piece this together, so I've got my bottom piece on there. Now I'll tell you, the length from wrap around all this way is 88 inches, which seems like a lot, but it's going to be pretty darn close to what it should be. So where you're going to struggle on this if you do it this way is you'll find is that I wrapped it up to basically about here, and I've trimmed it so you can see it's down under the flange to where it's going to tuck in. But I started the piece kind of up around here, almost halfway on this bottom section right here. About halfway, just kind of worked it down, and then I got to these corners, and I tell you what, these corners suck. Because what happens is you keep it here, and you try to pull it in and pull it down, the material kind of goes up this way. So getting to these, wrap around these bottom corners, man, it's tight. So I will say, I did a patch on that side, and I stretched it on this side to fit. So I'm going to say 8 inches is I'm going to say is a no. Don't do 8. I will say if you want to do it, shoot for like 12. And I know that sounds like a lot. I know 12 is like, what? You're going to waste a bunch of material. And you are. On these bottom sections, you're going to waste a bunch of material. You can see how much, just with 8, I've got probably at least 2 inches of material I'm going to cut off and wrap. But when it gets over here and you have to start stretching and heating and all that nonsense, you're going to be thankful that you did 12. So I'm going to say shoot for 12, maybe 10. You guys make that call, but I'll tell you 8. 8 I think is just too short. So the next piece now is going to be, I'm going to wrap basically this section So I'm going to run some 3M knifeless tape right here, right on this transition where it goes down and then this way. So I'm going to cut it. So I'll cut this material here and tuck it in, which is going to be beautiful. This will work, and then I'm going to run this piece, once I've got it all feathered in, I'll run it on the top up here so that I can cut it right here in this groove. And then that's going to work nice, because then I can take this top piece, then I can also wrap it down and then use knifeless tape to cut the top right here, and then it's going to be beautifully wrapped perfectly where I want it to be, and it's all going to be hidden in seams. You won't even see the seams because they're going to be tucked down in these little grooves, and it will look like it flows right with the body. Okay, so I've moved on to the second piece of the bumper. Now obviously I stopped this bottom piece roughly about halfway up this transition, right? It comes up, just out and around the molding, goes up and around. I then cut a 6-inch piece of the same material, so it's the same width, it's 88 around the bend and around. And I lined it up so where I had roughly the top of the material almost at the top where this transitions out of the molding. So where it kind of goes up and then towards the front. I lined it up with that and then set it to this surface, this top piece. This one is not too bad, other than you just have to kind of take it in stages. So I started with, in the center, I started with this top molding line. So I smoothed all of this out, went to the top back, smoothed all of it out, and I really worked in about 6-inch to 8-inch sections so that I keep it taut, keep it tight. There, do the top piece, pull it tight, do the next piece, pull it tight, do the next piece, all the way up. What that allowed me to do is to kind of feed the material. If I knew I had it tight here, I could then pull it and feed it up and into this recess here. Then I could take it from this point. Once I had it all the way around, I came back in, I then fed it down into this recess line here, this molding where it kind of dips in. Same thing, all the way around, about 6-8 inches at a time, and I went literally side to side. Start at the center, go all the way to the edge, go all the way to the edge, and then I come back and do the next piece. So then I did the flat, edge to edge, the next transition, edge to edge, the next molding line, edge to edge, and then literally did the bottom piece. Now before I cut anything, this is the time to heat this and get it to set. Because once you cut it, if there's any tension on it, because you haven't heated it, what it's going to happen is it's going to basically pull back. You want to get rid of all the memory out of that. So if you have this stretched anywhere, you should be feeding it in, but if you have any tension on it from stretching it, make sure you heat it out. Get rid of that memory, because otherwise you cut it and then it pulls back. That's no bueno, because then you don't have enough to really kind of pull on to get it done. So what I'm doing now is I'm cutting with a razor blade. Now I mentioned using the 3M knifeless tape, which I'm going to do on this top piece here from when I move this down. But in order to cut these pieces, I'm just using my razor knife. So again, just a little tip out, not much, right? And then very steady hand cutting at the top of this edge mold line. And then at the bottom one, I'm cutting at the bottom here. So it comes down, the transition goes down. So if I show you, this is what your top should look like. Now you can see right there, there's kind of the down dip in, and that's where my seam is going to be, so it's going to be hidden inside of this kind of this molding line. This is about a 1/2 inch, and I left that so you could see it, and all I'm doing is cutting literally at the top of that recess, where it comes down here, where it goes dips in. That's where I'm cutting. Nice, steady hand, just cut it all the way down. I haven't finished that yet. Now if I show you the bottom, you can see there's this overlap here, right? So there's about a 1/4 inch overlap. Coming up this top piece, comes up halfway. This other piece comes over top by a 1/4 inch, and you can see where I'm cutting it here. So this leaves me about 1 inch or so of extra material at the bottom when I'm done. So if I can I'll just leave that alone until I take it, but I need to finish cutting this here right along this edge and cutting this one along the top and then peeling it away, and I'll show you the finished product. Alright, let me show you one last note also before I show you the finished product. Where you're going to really struggle is this transition from the corners over. And what happens is that you've got stretched material all the way here, which stretches fine, but it tends to bunch here. what you want to do on this is basically pull this material up till it's taut, and I want you to heat it. Now, you don't have to put a lot of tension on it, but heat it up so that material becomes docile. I don't know a good word for it. Basically, it becomes soft, rather than having tension on it and where it wants a bunch of that. And that once it gets hot, you can start to kind of just push up in here, and you can use your squeegee just around the edge, and you're just basically going to take the tension out of it and kind of flow it into this recess here. Once you have it all in there, you'll start to get kind of these bunches up, which is fine, because once you pull this, once it's cut and pulled off, it's a-okay. Everything else gets covered, and then you got a beautiful finished product. So I lean back here. There's the finished product of piece 2. You can see now all I need to do is finish the top, which I need to lay down my knifeless tape. Let me do that, and then I'll show you how I'm going to do the third piece. Okay, so here is going to be how I'm going to do the top piece. Obviously, it's going to come down, and the goal with this knifeless tape right here, this kind of green stuff, is that I want to be able to go down over this, go through this, kind of this little indentation there, I guess you call it, or the molding line, and then I want to go over top this knifeless tape with the top layer. Once I do that, I can then get this top piece laid down nice and smooth, and then pull the knifeless tape through that, cutting it. That way I don't cut through the bottom of the this wrap. It'll only cut the top. So you can see that is probably maybe about a 1/4 inch below, right above this curvature line right here. And the whole point is that I want it to cut it enough to where when I heat it and kind of feed it back down into this groove, it covers this bottom piece, but at the same time it's going to feed enough down in there that it won't overlap down to this bottom section. So do your best laying it down. I mean, this is the intent of it, and you know, I did my best laying it down, and we'll see once it's wrapped, is it truly going to pull through and look as good as I'd hoped to. But you can see it's all the way down and around the edge. Alright, so here's the top piece of the bumper. Now, after I showed you the tape, the width of this material is going to be 12 inches. So again, the roll was cut to 88 in length, which, remember, it goes this way for the bottom 2 on the top because it's this way. It now goes up over the side. So you can see there's a bunch of extra material on the side. And if you center it, you'll get, it's about 64, I think, with the width. So you'll get about 20-something inches. And by the time you're done, you'll have a bunch left. You'll have a bunch in the center here because, remember, it goes here and then it goes wide as it goes to the tail light. But doing 12 and starting in the center gives me just a little overlap along this edge, and all the extra kind of gets pushed to the top, which is fine because once you wrap it, roll the edge, heat it, and then do the backside, this gets cut off. You'll never see it again. Now, the last piece of this, I've already done post heat on it, and I'll tell you this edge right here, whoo, it's going to be tough. But what I need to do now is pull up the tape, the knifeless tape, cut through the material here all the way around, and then really just kind of get this edge back sitting down flush to where it's on there, and try and get the last bit down in this groove. This groove right here is a tough one. Before you go do this, when you're doing sanding, make sure you cover these, this groove especially because it's really kind of tight in this little radius. Cover it a lot with sanding. I think there's going to be a couple areas in here that I'm still going to struggle with to try and get really good adhesion. And I covered it a lot. With 1500 all the way down. Still having a little bit of trouble. So just do your best with this sanding, prep, and then I guess it's time for the tape. Let's get this tape out of here, and well, we'll see how it turns out. Now, as you're pulling this tape, just remember you're pulling directly against the material. You don't want to pull out because you'll lift the material off. What you want to do is cut directly across it like this. So you're going to pull directly parallel to the material like this. That is a pretty good cut. All the way out. All right. Now, here's your material, your string. Now I need to get my halves out. Now with this, because you're peeling off the bottom, you can pull down and away. Remember, you're peeling the bottom half of the material, so it's okay to wrinkle it. You don't want to pull up this way because you wrinkle this top piece. So pull everything down and away from what you want to leave. Take this bottom off here. So when you go to work this material down, it's going to be kind of lifted up a little bit, and I don't want to work it in edges at an angle. I want it to work directly perpendicular to it. I want to get it to lay directly flat down, so I can just use my squeegee here. Kind of tuck and push out. Tuck in, push out. Tuck in, push out. And it gives a nice, crisp seal. Tuck in, push out. So if it was popping up out of this channel, if it's loose or anything else, there's a tendency if I go straight across, what it does is it kind of pulls the material. So I want to be able to tuck one final time, then push out. Tuck one final time, push out. That way I can get a good crisp groove down in here if there's any chance that it's going to come out. Otherwise, in and down. All right, so there's the finished product of the bumper itself. Other than just needing, I'm going to take it back off, lay it on the table over here. That way I can wrap the backside pretty easy. Everything else is done. I mean, you can see that's extra here. You can cut this off, but that is that's a pretty nice seal. Now, most people are not going to recognize that this is 3 pieces. If I stand up, if I kind of show you at the back, there's what your finished product looks like. Now, I know it's not great in here for the light, but you can see that if I stand back and look, that all looks like one piece. It is actually 3 pieces of vinyl strategically put on there. So I'm going to do that to the front, and yeah, that is, well, I don't want to brag and say that's pretty good, but yeah, I think I'm okay with that. Okay, so that's it for this time on the vinyl wrap. What's left? Front bumper. That's the only thing I have left. So it requires fill, sand, prime, paint, probably a lot more sanding, then wrap. So I've got a lot of material left, thankfully, for the wrap to cover everything, and I've got all the paint. So now it's a matter of time of getting it done. So I think this has taught me a little bit about using strategic body lines and hiding things. And, well, I think I did pretty good on this. Just remember, don't be afraid to stop if something doesn't work. Similar to what the trunk was, the bumper had issues, so I stopped. I also took a piece of scrap, did a test piece to see if it was going to work, and taught myself how to use the 3-piece seam method. And thankfully, some of you guys on Instagram said, do it in seams, and I did here, and I think that's going to be the right way to go on the bumper, especially on these front and rears. They're just so complex. They're not aerodynamic. They're very blocky. So use the body lines for strategy, for a strategic place to seam them, and I don't think you'll even see that these are seamed. So that's it. Thanks for watching, guys. Thanks for subscribing. I hope you enjoy the vinyl work, and I hope in the future, if you guys ever have a plan of you're thinking about doing this, that this gives you the confidence that you can do it. It's just going to take a lot of work. Some days like this, it's just going to take a lot of work, and sometimes you're going to make mistakes, and that's how you learn how to kind of work it all together. So with that, I got to get all the wrapping done. Thanks for watching, guys. See you next time.